Uh-oh. Computer's waking up. Okay, host only. I am going to turn off the chat just so we can go ahead and jump in just a little bit. I'm going to do a little mini lesson today. I do like to kick off with some review. And the reason I like to review is so you don't forget what you've already learned. So if you would please grab your whiteboards and your markers. We are going to start off with a review. Okay, I'm going to switch over to my trusty little camera here. And if you put it in speaker view, if you put your view in speaker view, then you should be able to see my camera nice, my whiteboard nice and clearly. Clear. You can see it. Big, bigger, bigly. I don't know. All right. The first thing I'm going to ask you, I have a question for you, and you're going to write it on your whiteboard. Write about what you know about adding and subtracting decimals. And this is a sentence, so write one sentence about adding and subtracting decimals, please. Write one sentence about that. Ooh, I guess I can show my face. There you go. Yes, write one sentence, and I'm going to have you hold it up to the camera so I can see if you remember the rule for adding and subtracting decimals. I'll give you about a minute to write that down. Yeah, you know the drill, Aaron. He's got the back of his whiteboard showing, so I know he's done.
Did Troy Saxton make it in class? I have not seen him. He was not in homeroom, and he's not. Parent is saying that he's here, and I don't see him anywhere. So Troy, if you're here, sound off for me because I don't see you anywhere.
I don't see him either.
Okay.
Is he a number or a code name or something weird?
That's what I'm trying to find, but I don't.
We only have one, and I'm pretty sure that's Emily A.
Yeah. Okay.
All righty. Interesting. Maybe he's still sitting in, yeah, I don't know, in the wrong meeting. I don't know. Just talking out loud. All right. I see the backs of your whiteboards. Let's go ahead and reveal those answers. On the count of 3, show me those. 1, 2, 3. Hold it really close so I can see your sentences. It's weird how some of the sentences are backwards and some of them are forward. Yes, yes, yes. Always, always line up the decimals. That's right. Line up the decimals. Very good. I'm seeing you need to line up the decimals. I know that for adding and subtracting, you have to line up the decimals. Always. Very, very nice. I see that you have remembered for adding and subtracting decimals, you must line up the decimals. That's fantastic. Now I'm going to ask you to erase that one, and I'm going to ask you the same question about multiplying decimals. Write me one sentence about multiplying decimals, please. What do you have to do? How do you multiply decimals? What is the rule about decimals when you multiply them? That was fast, Angel. You must have been ready for it. Mason, you got your whiteboard ready to go? Huh? Okay, there you go. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Remington. Thank you, Kazina. Thank you, Mia. That funny little face drawn on the back of your whiteboard. All righty. On the count of 3, I'd like to see what you got. I'll start from a different view here. 1, 2, 3, show me. Hold it up to the camera, please, so I can see what you remember about multiplying decimals. What is a rule for multiplying decimals? Show me, show me, show me. Please, please, please. Oh, I got a page full of people here not doing it. Oh, no answers here on this page either. Are you kidding me? Come on. Oh, thank you, Lavisa. You saved your page. Oh, and Sophia, she's also, hold it nice and close so I can see. There you go. You have to count, 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 move the decimals. Yes, count, count, count. You count how many digits. Oh, there you go. Ooh, Isabella, she wrote a lot for multiplying decimals. You don't have to line up the numbers and decimals. You count the digits behind the decimals. Yes. However, ooh, good. You have to count, 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 count how many are behind the decimal. That's right. And that's how many digits are behind the decimal in your answer as well. Count and move. That's right. Count and move. And I know division is still a little bit more tricky. When you divide by decimals, it really depends on where the decimal is located. If you have a decimal inside that you're dividing by, then if you're dividing a decimal by a whole number, if you divide a decimal by a whole number, I want you to write down one sentence. If you divide a decimal number by a whole number, what do you know about dividing those decimals? Ready, set, go. Alrighty. If you are dividing a decimal number by a whole number, let's see your answer for that. Your one sentence on what you do with those decimals. Ready, set, go. Show me. 1, 2, 3, show me. You move the decimal outside, you have to move the decimal inside. That is true. Yeah, ooh, you have to bring up the decimal. That's true too. So if you have a decimal on the outside, you have to move it to make it a whole number. If you have a decimal on the inside, you move it like the outside. Okay, yes, bring up the decimal. Yes, don't forget to bring up the decimals. Yes, if you're dividing by a whole number, you just divide and bring up the decimal. That is absolutely true. All right, you guys are getting, whew, you guys are remembering. I'm so happy. All right, now let's remember, let's put these things into place. We're going to review a few. Now I'm going to turn my camera on so that you can actually solve these problems. One addition, one subtraction, one multiplication, one division on your whiteboards. Ready?
Bragg.
Yes.
Really quickly, and I'm sorry, Mrs. Whitman needs her 2 students in her breakout room, but if I turn her breakout room on, it's going to turn the other one on.
Oh.
Can we pivot?
Okay.
I don't,
Yes.
I'm so sorry.
You know what? If we pivot and we do that, we will, here's what's going to happen. We're going to have a breakout room, and the students who have not finished Khan Academy from last week, it's very important because these are quizzes and they're grades. They're going in the grade book. They are on your report cards. You're going to come with me to a breakout room right now so that you can simply work on Khan Academy, and you're not allowed out of there until you finish Khan Academy, and I will okay that for you to leave. The rest of you, we are going to, for those of you who finished Khan Academy, there's like 78 of you that actually finished Khan Academy, and you guys are going to be rewarded by doing a review and by playing a game. And I wasn't able to teach you the game yet, but there is Prodigy. So I want you guys to actually, that's your assignment for today. Those of you who finished Khan Academy, you're going to go on, you're going to play Prodigy right now. You get to play Prodigy for about the next 20 minutes or so, and while the rest of us work on Khan Academy. All right? Sound good?
Thank you. Here
You
we go.
bet. All right, thanks.
Go ahead and log into joinpd.com. I will share my screen here so you can see today's code, which is KGIFU. There is today's code. Go ahead and type that bad boy in and we will get started.
I'm
So-
gonna leave Poppy Chulo in the waiting room.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
I'm gonna remove them.
Yeah.
Unless anybody's looking for Poppy Chulo, then.
Orale. All right. Okay. Code is there on the screen. We are going to review a little bit about organization just briefly, and then we're going to talk about how we link our ideas, our sentences, our paragraphs, how we link those together. That's what we're going to talk about today. So transition, words, and phrases. Those are some things that that writers struggle with. It's sort of, how do we link one idea with another? And the mind blower is once you get really good at transitioning from paragraph to paragraph, you really don't need transition words and phrases anymore. They're kind of built in. So, but we are going to start on the ground floor. Okay, I'll wait about 10 more seconds and then we'll get started. Okay, cool. Let's get going. So today we're going to talk about transition words and phrases, but we're going to do just a quick review. So closing a piece of writing is one of the most challenging tasks for a writer. Would you agree or disagree? True or false? True or false? Closing a piece of writing is one of the most challenging tasks for a writer. Take about 5 more seconds to respond. Closing a piece of writing is one of the most challenging tasks for a writer. True. Wow, we've got some people who are strong on conclusions. Good for you. There is no right or wrong answer here. It just depends on your perspective and your skill set as a writer. But a majority of us have a difficult time closing a piece of writing. So last week, if you remember, closing a piece of writing is one of the most challenging tasks for a writer, or certainly for most of us. And then we talked about the different types of endings. We discussed 5 in particular: summary of the main points, issuing a challenge, an invitation, feelings, and further exploration. So there are a number of strategies that you can use to end a piece of writing. So for those of you who were not here on Friday, that is what we discussed. And again, I will post that presentation in the Google Classroom for you to review if you need it. So before we get started today, I want to take just a quick departure. So this is from a magazine, the Christian Science Monitor Weekly, which is a, as far as journalism is concerned, one of the better newspapers out there, in my opinion. But what I want you to do is I want you to read this particular, the first 2 paragraphs here, and then we're going to come up with a headline. So this is from an article, recent article in the Christian Science Monitor Weekly. Up the hill from Kevin Roach's office, trash trucks clank and grind into a gaping warehouse, disgorging to conveyor belts the flotsam of modern households. Bottles drunk, papers crumpled, plastic wrappers tossed, laundry cartons drained. It is evidence, says Mr. Roche, the chief executive officer of EcoMaine, the state's largest recycling facility, that neither a pandemic nor a ban by China has stopped recycling. Okay? So, in one word, and I want you to type the word in the chat, what do you think this article is about? So, up the hill from Kevin Roche's office, trash trucks clank and grind into a gaping warehouse, disgorging to conveyor belts the flotsam of modern households. Bottles drunk, papers crumpled, plastic wrappers tossed, laundry cartons drained. It is evidence, says Mr. Roche, the chief executive officer of EcoMaine, the state's largest recycling facility, that neither a pandemic nor a ban by China has stopped recycling. So go ahead and just type one word. What do you think this particular article is about? Now I got to get back to my chat, and I can't get back to it. What am I saying? I can't see the chat here. What are some words that we're seeing in the chat?
Let's see. I have it on host only, so I'll read some. Recycle.
Yes, recycling. Now, one thing that you'll notice about this particular article is the number of strong verbs, right? Trash trucks clank and grind into a gaping warehouse. Okay, gaping being the adjective there. Disgorging to conveyor belts, the flotsam of modern households. Bottles drunk. Papers crumpled, another strong verb. Plastic wrappers tossed, another strong verb. Laundry cartons drained. It is evidence, says Mr. Roche, the chief executive officer of EcoMaine, the state's largest recycling facility, that neither a pandemic nor a ban by China has stopped recycling. So, recycling is certainly the topic of those two paragraphs. The headline for that particular article is recycling broken? ? Don't toss it out yet, say insiders. Okay? So the reason that I'm sharing that with you is you'll notice the strong verbs in those first two paragraphs. And then you'll also notice that you know what this article is going to be about. You know that it's going to be about recycling in some way. And they tell you that with it, or Doug Struck, the author of this particular article, lets you know that within the first two paragraphs. So we have the hook here that's describing everything that's going on at that recycling center. And then that second paragraph is essentially our thesis statement, or what the article is about. Okay? So just wanted to show you an example of what strong verbs in a piece of nonfiction writing looks like. Okay, let's get into today's. So, true or false? I have difficulty moving from one idea to another when I write. So go ahead and click on that bar at the bottom and let me know. Do you have difficulty moving from one idea to another when you write? Like, I have multiple ideas in my head, but I'm not quite sure how to link those ideas together. How many of you have that issue when you are writing? Okay, take another 10 seconds to respond. All right, thank you for the 73 out of 105 people who responded. True, 45 true, 31 false. Interesting, interesting, interesting. And some more people chiming in on the true. Okay, having difficulty moving from one idea to another when you write, that is an issue that a lot of writers have. we know sort of the basic transition words, and we're going to do some brainstorming here in just a moment. So we're going to be typing some things in the chat here. Okay. So transition words and phrases help us link our thoughts and ideas together. Like I said, eventually we're going to get to the point where we don't really need those, or not to the degree that emerging writers do. You just get so good at putting things together, it fits. So right now, what I want you to do is type a transition word or phrase into the chat, and I'll add those words into the circle map that I have up here. So if someone wouldn't mind, again, like I can't read the chat here, but if somebody wouldn't mind.
I've got all of a sudden.
Yeah. So what are some transition words or phrases we're seeing there in the chat?
I've got speaking of, all of a sudden, also.
All of a sudden.
Another idea.
Another idea.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Speaking of.
Speaking of.
Let's see. Moving on. Did you know? After that. Therefore. As you can see. Now that we're talking.
Wow. Okay.
Before that happened.
Okay.
As well. Another way.
Another way, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
After that, you have that one. Later we can.
Okay.
Discussing.
Interesting.
Yeah. Remember that for later.
Okay, we'll go ahead and stop. We'll go ahead and stop right there. This right here is an interesting list, you all, because primarily when we are dealing with transition words and phrases, we are dealing with something called sequence. And what I mean by sequence is we're talking about a linear progression of thoughts and words and ideas. So even though they're basic, like we sort of skipped some of the basic ones, I think after that is really one of the few that that sort of denotes time. Therefore is a transition word when we're talking about cause and effect. As you can see, so these are a lot of these phrases. Before is another one that would indicate time as well. But a lot of these are sort of like therefore, as you can see, is if you are wrapping up a piece of persuasive writing, those are some phrases that you would use. But when we're transitioning, and I'm going to make a copy here. But when we're transitioning from one idea to another, some things that are dealing with sequence. So you would see things like first, then, after. What are some other transition words or phrases that indicate sequence or time? First, then after.
Finally.
Finally. Thank you, Mr. Mullen. Second, you know, and these aren't like high level. Third, anything that would indicate order or sequence.
I've got lastly.
Lastly, by the way, lastly, firstly, secondly, those are not words, by the way. That's why we say first, second. And a lot of adults make that mistake as well, but don't let anybody tell you that firstly is a word, because it's not. Same with secondly or thirdly. But like I said, that's a mistake that a lot of adults make too.
Got next, also.
Next, yes.
Before.
Also, yes. Before.
Last.
Did I put last on there? No, it's not. Okay,
No.
good.
I have, what about first off?
First off, yeah, sure, you could do that. So like if we had transition, even, you know, transition words and phrases. So even if you were just to do a quick like Google search for these, like take a look at these here. In the first place, again, first, second, third, equally important by the same token. So we've got, yeah, those are some pretty opposition. And you can see how it's sort of broken down too by the different types of writing too. But if we're talking strictly about time, you know, first, second, also, again, in addition, similarly, and it's all going to depend on the type of writing that we do. But these are some examples of when we're talking about sequence or order, those are some of the transition words and phrases that you are going to see. So let's go ahead and jump back into the lesson here. All right. So what I want you to do here is I'm going to read this aloud. You can read it along with me. And I want us to find transition. And why is this not? Okay. All right. The worst trip ever. The worst trip I ever took with my friend was to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And then you'll see the number 1 here. We expected that our beach house would be on the ocean front. So I want you to think about well, no, your 4th grade teacher was wrong. Sorry. The worst trip I ever took with my friend was to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So you'll see the 1 in brackets there. What is a transition word that we could put right there in that space number 1? Go ahead and type that in the chat if you would.
Let's see. You should be able to see it now, Mr. Hartman.
The chat?
Yeah, see if you can see it. If not, I can keep reading them.
Okay, cool, got it. Awesome.
Got it? Okay.
Awesome, thank you. Furthermore, I like the idea there, Dylan, but furthermore would sort of imply like a second or third reason. So great transition word, but I think there's a better one for number 1. But great transition word, and I think that's one that we could potentially use later on down the list. Next, also, okay. Okay, good, good. Last before first. When we arrived, when we got there. Yeah, any of those, firstly is not a word. First of all would work. When we arrived would work. First would work. Any of those are good. So worst trip I ever took with my friend was to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. First, we expected that our beach house would be on the ocean front. And there's several choices. So first of all, when we arrived, any of those would work. So good job there. So let's take a look at 2 here. 2, comma, not only could we not see the water, we had to walk 30 minutes along a major highway to get to the beach. So what would another transition word? Sadly, yeah. That would actually work. Then would certainly work. Second would work as well. Then we're getting into a little bit of a pattern. Then, yep. Then, not only could we not see the water, we had to walk 30 minutes along a major highway to get to the beach. Good. But not only could we not see the water, we had to walk 30 minutes along a major highway to get to the beach. That would work as well, but you have to be very careful about beginning sentences with coordinate conjunctions, like but then, yeah. But it would work. It would work. So 3, we're moving on to 3. To make things worse, yeah, Chloe, that's a fantastic transition. That would very much work for number 2 as well. That's great. That's very creative. Nicely done. So would work as well. Good, good. Okay, moving along to number 3. We decided, so there's a transition there. We decided to drive our car. So what I think would work well there. Okay, moving along. So now we're moving on to number 4. Number 4. My friend's car had a busted water hose and we had to walk wherever we went. So I'm gonna read, and like many of you had other great transitions, I'm just gonna throw some in here just to give you some flow. The worst trip I ever took with my friend was to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. First, we expected that our beach house would be on the ocean front. Then, not only could we not see the water, we had to walk 30 minutes along a major highway to get to the beach. So we decided to drive our car. So now we're here at number 4. Blank, my friend's car had a busted water hose and we had to walk wherever we went. Unfortunately would absolutely work for that. Sadly though would also work, unfortunately. After that would work as well. Good, you guys have the idea. Well, I'll go with unfortunately. Unfortunately, my friend's car had a busted water hose and we had to walk wherever we went. So now, moving along to number 5, what will we say there? The weather was steamy, hot, and humid the whole week. You could even say something along the lines of to make things worse. Even worse. Yeah, Alexis, absolutely. Sadly would work as well too. Sadly, whole day, I'm not quite sure. The sad part is, yep, all those would work. So moving along to 6, or to make matters worse, the weather was steamy, hot, and humid the whole week. Now we're at the last part. What would the last part be? Last, don't say lastly. Don't say lastly. Don't. We're going to get that. We're going to get out of that habit. And this is only half of the story. Half of the story. All right. In conclusion, yeah, that would work. To top it off. I like that. To top it off. Cool. In the end, the much appreciated and overworked air conditioner stopped working. Very good. Okay. So here's what we're going to do now. So I am going to stop this presentation and I'm going to start a new one. Okay. So in the chat, what I want you to do right now, and we'll do this instead of doing it at the conclusion. So at this point, what have you learned about transition words so far? What have you learned about transition words so far? Go ahead and share that in the chat. Chat with each other for just a moment. What have you learned about transition words and phrases so far today? What have you learned? All right. And then when we come back together here in about another 60 seconds, we're going to log in one more time because your teacher blew it. So there's going to be a new session ID. We'll see who's awake and who is not. All right. Okay, here is your new session ID. I'm going to share this in just a moment here. So you'll have to go to joinpd.com one last time for the last part of this assignment. My apologies, I blew that one. Nope, that's not it. Where'd it go? Oh yeah, there it is. Here is your new code right here, JUNK, J-U-N-K-K. So go ahead and log in with that ID, and we've got one last part to this particular lesson here, and then we are good to go. Mrs. Digby, what time are we supposed to break officially?
10 o'clock officially.
Officially, okay. I'm gonna put us about 5 minutes off the pace. Is that okay?
Totally fine.
Okay. Gavin Newsom isn't gonna jump into our Zoom meeting and Okay, here's your new code, JUNKK.
He should be fine. I already called him.
Okay, good. All right, so here's what I want us to do right now. This slide right here, worst trip ever. There are 7, 8, and 9. So go ahead and provide transition words or phrases for those 3 numbers. So 7 should be its own transition word or phrase, 8 should be its own transition word or phrase, and 9. So go ahead in the response box, type in what you feel would be the most appropriate or best transition word or phrase for those sentences. And I will give you about 3 minutes. 3 minutes. While we're doing that, I will check the chat here. Don't use firstly. Yes, 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 yes. Dylan Meyer, nicely done, sir. Transitions are important and helpful for writers who find trouble moving to the next topic or sentence. Very well stated. Good job. All right. Okay, got about another minute remaining. So for those of you who are okay, take about 30 seconds. Good, good, good. To change things up. Good, good. We are very much on the right track here. First, then finally. Yeah, that would probably be the. Perfect. Okay, you guys are very much on target. So it is one last thing before we close. One thing that you want to keep in mind with transition words is you want to make sure that you vary them. don't fall into the habit of using the same transition words over and over and over again. Make sure that when you go through and you're looking at your writing, that you are, you're making sure that you're varying those transition words, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, guys, cool. It is now 10:05. Let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break.
And yep. Okay, here's the code. FCCRP, go ahead and join that. When we get a crucial mass of students that have joined the program, we'll go get started. Mrs. Digby, isn't our vocabulary slides presentation due today?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But they have until midnight tonight to get it done, or? Okay.
Yeah, we'll check it tomorrow morning.
Okay, I just want to make sure they know that. Thank you for keeping me straight on details. Okay, we're almost there. Got 70 students. Keep joining, guys. Come on, I need 11 more. Might have to start at 80 students.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, we're almost there. Okay, guys, what we're going to do today is we're going to review all the things that we have learned about summarizing. Now, Mr. Hartman has added quite a bit from the writing side of things, and I've done quite a bit from the reading side of things. You'll notice that some of these things overlap. That's because at the heart of writing and reading and speaking is language, okay? But we're going to be talking specifically with the idea of having summarizing in view. Now, we've talked a lot about strategies. And when we come to strategies, maybe this will help you. It's a metaphor, but I want you to think of strategies as a toolbox, a bunch of tools in a toolbox. Each strategy is just another tool that you have to use in our pursuit of understanding. We have to use different tools for different situations, don't we? And sometimes we can use two different tools for the same situation, but one is going to always do a better job. And we have to become adept at using each of these different tools. And the only ways that we get adept at it is by practice, by using them. If you were to build an engine in a car, you could do a lot with a screwdriver. But if you have a tool that is, but if you have a ratchet, ratchet wrench, you could use that in some situations where you can never use a screwdriver. So it is with our strategies for learning comprehension. We've been focusing mostly on informational texts. Very quickly, not very far from now, we're going to switch over to narrative, and the tools are going to be different. Some of the tools will be very, very similar, but they're going to be typically different than the tools we use for, or the strategies we use in finding the main idea of an informational text. That means summarizing. Okay, so let's look at our tools. Let's look at our strategies. The first tool we talked about from the very beginning, one of the 7 habits of effective readers, was to take a survey. And you look here, I have a picture of a book. It's a book I have not read. I have no idea what it's about. But by looking at the cover, just the front and back cover, to survey it, to look it over quickly, I can gather clues as to what it's about. So what kind of clues could I figure out, could I see? Well, from the graphics, from the picture, I see a castle. Well, there's a whole bunch of genres that are filled with castles. For instance, fantasies, but also history. Some other things, the word imagination, the word with hearts, the graphic with hearts suggests that maybe it's going to be a little bit romantic. There's a quote in the back by Albert Einstein that says, imagination is more than knowledge, more important than knowledge. Then I read the title. We always read the title as a clue to what the book is about. Sometimes the title is fairly ambiguous, but this one says a touch of whimsy and fun, okay? So if I was to make a guess about what this book was about, I might say it's about it's a romantic novel about something in the Middle Ages or something like that. Now, am I right? Oh, I could be far wrong. I could be wrong, couldn't I? But I've done the survey. It gives me a clue. My mind is going in a certain direction as to what the book is about. Remember, surveys only give you a very, very general idea, not a specific idea, a general idea. Then we make a prediction. Here's our second tool, our second strategy. And good readers do this all the time. They read, they predict. They read, they predict. They read, they predict. The only thing that they do more than make predictions is ask questions. And we'll look at that in a minute. To make a prediction is to take an educated guess on what will happen in a text. So if I was to make a prediction about this book, because I see a castle and I see a balloon, I see lots of hearts, I'm going to say this is a romantic novel about a princess that is imprisoned within a castle but escapes by a balloon. Okay? Now, I may be way, way off, but that doesn't matter. What's important is to make a prediction, an educated guess on the clues that you have. Okay? So that's what it is to make a prediction. And we've practiced this several times, many times already, and so we're not going to dwell and stay here very long. The next tool that we have is question and response. To ask questions is to ask what the text might say or lead us to. Where is the text going? To respond is to answer the questions. Now, we can ask questions about almost anything that is provoked by the reading. I want us to read real quickly this selection over on the right. It says, noticing mistakes boosts learning. And I want you to look through this. There's several parts of this text that are different from one another. There's actually 5 different parts, and each one of them gives a clue. Okay, so let me read it to you. You listen, read along with me, and let's ask some questions and maybe get a response. Noticing mistakes boosts learning. Children who pay closer attention to mistakes improve skills more quickly, study shows. By Alison Pierce Stevens, 2017. In this informational text, Allison Pierce Stevens discusses a study by psychologist Hans Schroeder about what happens when we make mistakes. While making a mistake might feel like a negative experience, noticing these mistakes could be the key to learning. As you read, take notes on how growth mindset and fixed mindset impact children when they make mistakes. Mistakes get a bad rap. People often brush them aside by saying, "I'll do better next time." But students who pay a close attention to their mistakes actually do learn a task faster than kids who ignore them. Focusing on what went wrong helps us learn, a new study shows. So here's what I want you to do. Down below, I want you to write 2 questions that you could make just from this selection right here. Now we're going to have more than just 2 when we add them all together, but all I want you to do is write two quick, short, simple questions. Go. I'll give you 2 minutes, 1 for each question. Go.
And couldn't help but notice, Mr. Mullen, that that passage that you posted has both a hook, mistakes get a bad rap, and a thesis statement.
There you go.
Focusing on what wrong helps us learn, a new study shows.
That's right. And both of them are where? At the beginning of the passage, at the beginning of the article. Almost 1 minute. Time goes by fast, doesn't it? This is actually, Mr. Hartman, is actually a really good article and something that we might teach. We could teach this very easily. Okay, guys, 1 minute. You should have 1 question done already. Be working on the second question. "30 seconds. Okay, guys, let's look at this and let's see what some of our questions are. Okay, why does it say noticing mistakes boosts learning? Why were the children studying? What happens if children make mistakes? Why do children pay closer attention to mistakes, improve skills more quickly? Okay. How does noticing mistakes help kids learn? Both of those are really at the very, very heart. Make sure you put a question mark after your questions. Both of those are good questions. They just need question marks. This one right here isn't a bad question. Why did the author write about mistakes? What's her object? What's her motive? Why do we do mistakes? Why don't some people learn from mistakes? And is it bad for you if you don't learn from your mistakes? Those are big questions. How do you recognize the difference between mistakes and that which is true? How do we make mistakes? What kind of mistakes we make? Is it okay to ignore small mistakes? Why is it so easy to ignore our mistakes? Okay.
Because it's more convenient.
Yeah. Sometimes I think some of our questions have to do more with the moral rather than the academic side of things, which is interesting. How can children learn from their mistakes? Good. How do you find a mistake? That's good. What is a psychologist? That's a good question. Look, if you say something and you don't know what it is, that's a good question. What is a psychologist? What do they do? Okay. How do these two affect kids in different ways? Okay. Look, there's many different ways that we can make questions out of this. If we look at the title, and if we look at the subtitle, the first two parts of this text, we can make we can make questions out of these. For instance, we might just say, remember those question words, how, when, why, you know? How does noticing mistakes boost learning? Why do children who pay closer attention to mistakes improve their skills? Okay? You can also get it from the actual text itself. Why do mistakes get a bad rap? Or what did the author mean by that when she said mistakes get a bad rap? Okay, so the important thing is to ask questions. But as we ask them, as we read, we want to respond. When a question is answered, we want to respond. Now, we'll respond in our minds, and we'll also respond by writing it out, okay? Many times, if you are a good reader, a good student, and you're really trying to learn the text, you will write out your questions, and as they are answered, you will write out the response. Let's go to the next slide. Our next tool that we use, that we've learned about, is read, reread, and summarize, okay? Now, I've put all three of these together, and they're kind of almost like three different tools, or two tools and one goal, okay? To read and reread is a strategy of reading the text more than once, first for the big picture, then for the details and the flow of argument, okay? We read and then we reread, but we do them for different purposes. The first is to get a big picture, a picture of the context, to get an idea of what the topic is about. Then when we read close, we're trying to find the details and we're trying to find the flow of the argument. So let's read this one. History is full of beautiful and wonderful things. You can probably think of many, like your first birthday and the day you got your latest favorite thing. People in your family probably remember great days like the day that the men walked on the moon, or the day the Berlin Wall came down. Everyone you know has favorite days, days that they remember happily. September 11th, 2001 was different. On September 11th, a great many people died. You probably already know the details. The big picture is the World Trade Center, one of the most famous symbols of the earth and of the United States, was destroyed. One airplane hit each of the two towers of the World Trade Center. Not long after that, both towers collapsed. Many people lost their lives. It also led to a war that lasted even unto the present time. Now, there's two different ways. I want you to do this, okay? I want you to think of a word or a phrase that captures the general idea of this. We call it the topic. A word, a phrase that captures what this text is about. And I want you to respond. I'm only going to give you a minute. I want you to respond down below. Okay? a word or a phrase that captures what this text is about. We're looking at the big picture. Do it now. 45 seconds. Okay, about 10 seconds more. Okay, one word, history. That's not a bad topic. Buildings crashed by a plane. It's about memories of the past and how people remember them. Okay. It's about. See, that's it. You have to answer. It's about. 2 towers in the World Trade Center. World Trade Center being hit. Okay. If I was to think of something, you know, a topic, I might say this word, tragedy. Now that's a word that maybe you haven't heard before, but tragedy is something that happens that's sad. Or I might, if I was doing a short sentence or a phrase, I might say sometimes history is sad. Okay? Now, what I want us to do now is I want us to read this again, but this time we're going to summarize it. We're going to try to get the close up, try to get the flow of the arguments, try to get the details a little bit to feed into the topic, okay? Very briefly. And this is a brief text, so our summary should be briefer still, right? So I'm gonna read it one more time for you, and maybe you can come up with a sentence or 2 sentences or 3 sentences that summarize the whole thing. History is full of beautiful and wonderful things. You can probably think of many, like your first birthday and the day you got your latest favorite thing. People in your family probably remember great days, like the day men walked on the moon or the day the Berlin Wall came down. Everyone you know has favorite days, days that they remember happily. September 11th, 2001 was different. On September 11th, a great many people died. You probably already know the details. The big picture is the World Trade Center, one of the most famous symbols of the earth and the United States, was destroyed. One airplane hit each of the 2 towers of the World Trade Center. Not long after that, both towers collapsed. Many people lost their lives. It also led to a war that lasted even unto the present time. Okay, again, down below, I want you to write a short summary. It should not be longer than 1 to 3 sentences. Go, start now. You have 3 minutes. Go. Remember, get the key idea, the key ideas. About 1 more minute. Okay, I'm going to start showing responses. This one is an excellent summary of the whole thing. Sometimes history can be happy and cheerful, like your first birthday, or when men walked on the moon. But other times, history can be unforgiving and sad, like on September 11th, when the World Trade Center was destroyed. Good job. A tragic event happened that a lot of people remember. One plane hit the Twin Towers, causing many people to die. This was a very tragic event in history. This event started a war. Many people remember this day. Good job. History is full of memories, some happy, some sad. Yep, you're getting the idea of what this short selection is about. 2001, September 11th, one of the biggest trade centers was destroyed in the United States. A huge amount of people died during this horrific tragedy. I like the use of words, your vocabulary. History is filled with horrible occurrences. Good job. History has a contrast between the horrible occurrences and happy memories, such as September 11th, 2001, structures were destroyed, war was started. This was a tragic memory people kept. Good job. The summary is that everyone has a favorite day and that everyone has something different than you probably won't think of. And that history is not always good. You're headed in the right direction, Aaron. Thank you for leaving your name. That helped me. September 11, 2001 was a tragic day. The Twin Towers collapsed after 2 planes flew right into them. Many people lost their lives. It also led to a war that lasted a while. It lasted a long while. Yeah, you're right. Okay. So that's our tool called read and reread. Okay? And there are times we need to use this. The harder the text, the more often you're going to use this strategy. Let's go to the next one, which is stop, think. It's called STP, but it's stop, think, paraphrase. When we come to if we're practicing summarizing, what we want to do sometimes is do this. We want to read part of a text, a short selection. We're going to cover it. We're going to think, what did I just read? And then we're going to answer that by putting the answer in our own words. So we're going to try this real quick. This is called STP. To find out the team recruited 123 children, all 6 to 8 years old. We don't even know what this is about, do we? We don't even have a title. There's nothing that we can really survey. We just have to read it and dig in. This is a good time when STP works. To find out, the team recruited 123 children, all 6 to 8 years old. This is an important time in a child's life. It's when most kids are beginning school. How well they do in school can be related to their mindset about learning and intelligence. There's a clue in there. Maybe we've read part of this before. There's a clue. Did you see it? A mindset is a particular attitude about a situation. Students who have a fixed mindset tend to believe that they are born with a certain level of intelligence. They don't believe it can ever change. Students with a growth mindset, however, think they can get smarter through hard work. Scientists have shown that this mindset can affect how well students learn. So, we're going to stop. If I could, I'd have you cover the text. I want you to think, what did I just read? And now I want you to put it in your own words, and I want you to put it down below. Go ahead. You have 1 minute. I'll give you a minute and a half. There we go. Be more generous, Mr. Long. About 20 seconds more. Now, did you pick up the clue with this word right here, mindset? We've seen that already this morning once before. In fact, this is the next section. I did this intentionally, but this is the next section of that writing that we read several slides ago. Can't remember its title. Oh yeah, noticing mistakes boosts learning. Okay, so this is the next 2 paragraphs. Now, let's see what our responses are. Students' educational importance so they can get smarter and work hard to grow. Okay? I read about having a good mindset, which is called growth mindset. You should have a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset, because if you have a fixed mindset, then you will not do good in school. And if you have a growth mindset, I'm assuming you would say they will succeed or something like that. There are 2 types of mindsets. There's a fixed mind and a growth mindset. The fixed mindset is when a kid thinks they're born with average IQ. The growth mindset is when a kid thinks that they can succeed. That's really close to what this whole thing is about. A mindset has to do with how we think. If you think that you are not intelligent, then you're going to perform at a lower level. But the fact is we are all intelligent. We all have maybe different degrees of intelligence, but we are all intelligent. And if we know that if we can work, that if we work, that intelligence is something that can be raised or achievement raised. Children start school 6 to 8. They go to school to be educated and grow. Scientists have shown that children learn well. You're hitting all around it, but you're not getting it. Okay? A lot of students think they are born with a high level of intelligence, while others think they get smarter over time. Scientists have shown that this sort of mindset can affect how well a student will learn. Perfect. Okay? So, we're doing better every day. This is hard stuff. Summarizing is not easy. It's difficult. And you guys are getting better and better at using these tools. Well, let's see what our next tool is. Next tool is keywords. Okay? I'm going to read this to you. Keywords, you just look for terms that are embedded in the text, that show up maybe more than once, or that are extremely important. And you lift them out of the text, you keep them, and you use them to write a summary. So let's read it and let's do it. To find out, the team recruited 123 children, all 6 to 8 years old. This is an important time in a child's life. Oh, you've already read this once before, haven't you? How well they do in school will be related to their mindset about learning and intelligence. A mindset is a particular attitude about a situation. Students who have a fixed mindset tend to believe that they were born with a certain level of intelligence. So what two words keep on coming up over and over and over again? Mindset, intelligence, growth is going to also show up several times, okay? Students who have a fixed mindset. Now look at that word fixed. Do you see how there's quotations around it? Right away, we should look at it and wonder, should that be one of my words? Students who have a fixed mindset tend to believe that they are born with a certain level of intelligence. They don't believe it can ever change. Students with a growth, oh, there it is again, in quotation marks, mindset, however, think they can get smarter through hard work, okay? So if I took those words, mindset, intelligence, maybe students, also fixed and growth, if I took those words and put them on a side and you help use them to help me write a summary, I would get some of those summaries that you have already written, okay? We're not going to do it again because you've already written a summary on this passage. So next. The next tool that we have is chunking, okay? Chunking. Chunking is when we split up or break up a text into certain parts and we summarize each part and then put those parts together, usually in order to get a good summary. So we're going to chunk. Ready? Here we go. In July 2002, a group of orcas swam to a beach in Western Canada. There they rubbed their bellies on the smooth pebbles along the beach. The group included a young female orca named Springer. Okay? Now, I don't want you to summarize anything but this, the first paragraph. Okay? Forget the lower part of the screen. Forget everything from where it says Springer all the way to the bottom. All I want you to summarize is the top. Okay? Go ahead and do it. You have 1 minute. Go. Okay, guys, we're running out of time, so I'm going to get to the response a little bit. Orcas are sometimes called killer whales. A male orca can weigh up to 9 tons. Okay. You're adding the summary for the second one. A group of orcas swam into Western Canada. Okay. Group of orcas swam to the west side of the beach. Group of orcas swam to a beach in Western Canada where they rubbed their bellies on the smooth pebbles in the beach of 2002. Okay? So you get an idea. A group of orcas swam to a beach in Western Canada. In July, a group of orcas swam to a beach in Western Canada where they, okay? We're getting it. Okay. Now, what I want us to do, you have this middle part, which is really, really kind of difficult to summarize. Why? Because it has four distinct facts about orcas. And it's hard to summarize, get an idea about how all of these relate together. Instead, what I want you to do is to read this down here below. The following January, a lone orca was spotted in Puget Sound near Washington State. Scientists figured out that the orca was about 2 years old and that she had been orphaned. Okay? Now, if I was chunking, I would then summarize this paragraph right here. And in summary, I would take the idea that came from the top paragraph and I would add it to the bottom paragraph. One last tool. This one's easy. It's making connections. Okay? Every time we read, often there should be an emotional reaction. If there's not a reaction someplace within us that somehow touches how we feel, then we probably are not going to make a connection and remember what we've read. So, there's 3 ways we generally make connections. We make connections within ourselves, we make connections within our world, or we make connections within a text, okay? So what I want us to do is read this, and I want you to tell me what one of those 3, world, self, or text, do you make when you hear this reading? So listen to me, read along with me. More people in the United States have allergies today compared with decades ago. Allergies are bad reaction to things around you or that you eat. In 2010, more than half of Americans were sensitive to at least one allergen. That was the finding of one survey by the National Institute of Health. Allergens are things that set off allergies. Many allergens, such as dust and mold, and maybe smoke, are found in the air. Allergies are increasing over time, said Andy Nish. He's a doctor from Georgia. Okay, down below, you got 1 minute. I want you to tell me how you make a connection with this. Okay, how you relate to this. Do it now. You've got 30 seconds, maybe a minute. Can you relate to this? Do you understand what this is saying? Yeah, I think we can, even from our own experience. I have a connection because almost my whole family has allergies. Good. I'm allergic to pollen. When it touches my face, I start to get bumps. Yeah. I make a connection by myself because I'm allergic. Okay? I connect to this because I always sneeze when I'm around dust and I cough when I'm around smoke. My whole family has allergies, including me. I don't know where you're at, but I'm looking outside my window and all I see is smoke. And it was hard to walk through it this morning without sneezing, without coughing. So I have an experience within myself. You have an experience within yourself, so many of us, where you are allergic to something, okay? So that connection is within us. It's within ourselves, our experience, okay? And that's a good way to relate, to understand this article. By reading it and understanding it, we will even understand more of ourselves, okay? So